Energy security has many dimensions. Historically, oil and gas played a major role in ensuring rapid industrialization in Europe and other advanced countries. People in these countries benefited from advanced techniques in industrial production as their feudal societies moved from the agricultural stage to the manufacturing stage. Holland, for purely natural reasons, was the first European country to move out of feudalism. For many centuries, the country's western coast was often inundated by the waters of the North Sea. A robust money market is a natural outcome in a country where agriculture faces uncertain natural risks, and where people have a natural advantage of shifting to other business practices. The early shift from feudalism to modernism in Holland paved the way for the rise of modern financial and political institutions in the country. Thus, permanent capital, low interest rates, readily available credit, joint stock company, stock exchange, finishing industry, and other such modern ideas found their roots in Holland. Bruges, and later Amsterdam, were great financial centers in the 16th and 17th centuries. Around the same time, the idea of bringing together weavers under the same roof to maximize production and make production more efficient led to the birth of the idea of a factory. And industries, in the modern form, were born when fuel and electricity guzzling machines were used to manufacture many essential and non-essential goods. By the middle of the 19th century, Britain was the most industrialized country in the world, as almost all goods produced by the country were manufactured in such machine-dependent factories. Social change was an inevitable outcome of these monumental advancements, as more and more men and women migrated from towns and villages to big industrial cities. Another vital element of this change was the natural need for modern education as countries shifted from agriculture to other business activities. Modern education is a necessary requisite to enable a meaningful transition from the feudal stage to the industrial stage of development, as big industries need engineers and employees who clearly understand the mechanisms of an industrial society. The shift from heavy dependence on human labor to that of machines required a steady supply of coal and other forms of fossil fuels. These fuels were needed to manufacture machines, power industrial plants, and run trains, ships, and later automobiles to transport raw materials and finished goods. However, intense business competition among big businesses in the 20th century made the idea of energy security a national concern, so much so that after the Yom Kippur War of 1973, as Arab countries imposed an oil embargo against the countries that supported the war, the US president had to request American citizens to cut down on power consumption. The last few decades saw major powers and oil and gas producers use energy security as a major tool for serving their national interests. The shale boom in the US in the last decade made the country energy independent. And during the initial phase of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, the two warring sides agreed that they could reach a possible ceasefire if they stopped targeting each other's energy installations. Now, in the light of advancements made in artificial intelligence, it is important to first separate the big idea into power security and fossil fuel security. This is because everything here is linked to the idea of policymaking, democratic institutions, and many other modern theories in political science, social science, and the science of economics. These ideas, again, are linked to many other advanced modern ideas that are beyond the scope of this video. The foundation for humanity's digital future was laid by the American mathematician Charles Sanders Peirce. Peirce suggested in 1886 that machines with electrical switches could solve mathematical and logical problems, and came up with a complicated symbolic logic to that effect. The idea of symbolic logic can be traced back to the 17th century German philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, who suggested a geared machinery for mathematical calculations. Logical calculus, through the use of symbolic logic, was the solution needed for making calculations mechanical. In 1847, when the Industrial Revolution in England was at its height, the English logicians George Bull and Augustus de Morgan published books, laying out complete symbolic systems. The big and simple idea behind symbolic logic is to make mistakes in human thought and reasoning easily detectable. This big idea, again, was clearly expressed by Leibniz. The German polymath suggested in 1685 that the only way to rectify our reasonings is to make them as tangible as those of the mathematicians, so that we can find our error at glance, and when there are disputes among persons, we can simply say, "Let us calculate," without further ado, to see who is right. And this is exactly what the 19th century logicians and mathematicians aimed for. They attempted to work out a system of symbolic logic in which much thought was spent on the design of a logical system so that the thought involved in detecting errors could be reduced. Peirce's lead, that electrical switches could be greatly used to that effect, was taken up by the mathematicians, scientists, and engineers of the 20th century to make machines that could manipulate symbols. The English mathematician Alan Turing, who studied logic and mathematics at Cambridge and Princeton, gave the first precise description of the first digital computer that could be programmed for exactly the same cause. In the advanced world, the demand for power or electricity is rising rapidly due to the high power demand for developing advanced AI models and enabling a meaningful transition to renewable energy for powering electric vehicles and industries. In the United States, the demand for power was stagnant for many decades as home appliances became more and more energy efficient from the 1950s onwards. Unlike oil, coal, and gas, electricity needs a highly complex and well-planned infrastructure, which needs years of planning, bureaucratic clearances, and a clear understanding of demand and supply. Oil and gas, on the other hand, can be used directly once they are refined from their crude form. Another related problem concerns the power demand of generative AI models, which has been rising exponentially as advanced AI models are consuming more and more power. While many big corporations and experts are writing about the environmental benefits of artificial intelligence, there are concerns about the adoption of AI by big energy giants to bring efficiency in their operations. Power demand for generative AI and other new AI models is far greater than that of early AI models. However, China's DeepSeek, which performs as good as OpenAI, is more energy efficient. Before China came up with DeepSeek, experts suggested that data centers in the United States could consume anywhere between 4.6% to 17% of country's electricity by 2030. Moreover, trends suggest that by that year, data centers training the largest AI models will have power demand of over 5 gigawatts, which is the average energy consumption of Manhattan at a given time. At the same time, even big oil companies are using AI models to increase their potential for profit. This is problematic because many big tech companies and even scientists and economists are talking about the environmental benefits of implementing AI. Meanwhile, Gulf countries are looking to diversify their economies away from oil, but they need time for that. Saudi Aramco and Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, two of the biggest names in the oil and gas sector, have been making huge investments in petrol stations, internal combustion engine-related technologies, and other related industries. The increasing use of electric vehicles is another vital factor. Additionally, there are ethical concerns with respect to energy transition, as many countries are aiming for the pole position at the cost of human rights.